Hey everybody, Adam Savage, and I'm at Propstore in London with Stephen Lane. How are you, my friend?
Very good, man. Great having you back here.
Dude, you have an auction coming up with right, we don't even have to talk about anything. This is one of one. This is Boba Fett's rifle.
It is the one and only one that we believe was used in Empire Strikes Back, which is just astonishing when you think about that.
When I saw that, I was like, that can't be the one.
But I think there's a lot of people saying that online right now, actually, interestingly enough, yeah.
Tell me about this incredible piece.
Well, we know that it came out of Bapti. So Bapti & Co. were the armourers who did a lot of the James Bond films, and they did all of the original trilogy Star Wars films as well. Certainly a lot of the early work on A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Some of the later stuff for Jedi, of course, was done in California.
And a lot of the weapons aesthetics in Star Wars are very much based on a World War II and some World War I weapon aesthetics, and this is one of those.
Yeah, and I think that aesthetic is something that helped people register and accept what it was that they were seeing on screen. You know,
right.
We've talked a lot about the sort of use space philosophy that George Lucas had for Star Wars, but it was also the practical use of known and found items and sort of mixing them up so they looked futuristic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're sort of like recognizing it, and so therefore you're immediately accepting, okay, well that's obviously a heavy-duty blaster because it looks like a big gun,
exactly,
you know, sort
yeah.
of thing. Rather than some of those other sort of more fantastical sci-fis where they really went outlandish and you're just like, it just doesn't look like anything.
In this
worked really well.
Yeah, in this very auction you have some Barbarella pieces, which are exactly that fantastical kind.
Yeah, for sure. So this came out of Bapti. They're an armourers within the industry, so they do deal with a lot of live-fire guns. They do a lot of, obviously, rubbers and things like that, and replicas now. And this came out in the 2000s, and we knew that it moved from Bapti at that point, the early 2000s, into a private collection, but nobody had really seen it to be able to authenticate it and really be confident that it was what they thought it was at the time that it was sold.
Wow.
Obviously, the reference that's come about now, today, technology, 4K, all of that reference that wasn't available then, you know, really helps us understand it now. So
it's a much better time to be a collector.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really gives us that sort of the fingerprint element of the forensic nature of the research that we do today that we couldn't do previously. So it went away into a private collection, and then it changed hands very, very recently, only within the last 12 months or so. And it was brought into us, and we were really expecting, you know, could this really be the one? Like everybody's saying online right now, you know, is it or isn't it? And we started to dive into it, and of course, Brandon in LA dived straight into it.
Yeah, of course.
Immediately, you know, how much he loves this stuff as well. And within a very short period of time, we'd screen matched it. And the first real tell was this, you know,
the break
the
on
break.
the I mean, this break looks like it predates the manufacture, the use of this weapon in a movie.
Well, that's what exactly, and this goes back to what we were saying about Bapti and about the use of real weapons. So this is a Mark I 1917 flare gun, isn't it? A Webley Mark I. And the likelihood is that this damage here is actually relative to whatever use it maybe had in World War I,
right.
or subsequently while it was sitting on the rack, you know, or in an armory, or wherever it might have been. This doesn't look to us like something where they've gone, oh, you know, we've got to get it looking rough and rugged. You know, let's just chip that out.
Deck. That's not set deck.
It's not set deck, and also the armourers, this would have had a value as a real gun at the time. They wouldn't have wanted anything messed with it like that. So we picked up on this very, very quickly, and that was the first real tell for us when we were thinking, okay, could this actually be the one?
Well, the other thing is that Bapti didn't just rent stuff out for a movie like Star Wars and then retire that piece. They were a rental house. They were recycling. They were moving these things. They were allowing productions to combine them and mess with them how they wanted, but then they were taking them and putting them back into the rotation.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was something that was really prolific during this era of filmmaking. You know, costume hire, a lot of special effects components, props especially, and then of course weapons. And going back into the early days of Propstore, when I used to go around these places, you know, these things were just sitting on racks and rails waiting to be redressed and refinished and re-rented. And of course, as technology has changed and people recognize that, they don't really do that anymore. So the foundation, so the gun itself, sure, but anything with dressing, anything that was very specifically finished, you just wouldn't really see that anymore.
Amazing. It is so beautiful to see up close. We'll take a look at the other side in a minute, but the brass handle here on the side, there is something about the older weaponry, the patina on them, that nothing quite gets to the same level of wear and tear to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that there's so much about this which is interesting to look at visually. Obviously, there's been some restoration, some very sympathetically undertaken restoration that's been done.
I'm really curious about that. Now, tell me about the threshold when you decide to or not to do a restoration on a piece. What are the dynamics that you're considering?
That's a really good question, and I think it's really very much on a case-by-case basis.
Sure.
A lot of it is going to be relative to the materials that the asset is made from, the artifact is made from. So, when you're talking about foam latex, for example, it's about preservation, isn't it? It's about ensuring that we maintain the longevity for the future. We don't want to see something break down so far it can't be recoverable. I mean, there have been some horror stories over the years with, I think everybody knows about the hoggle with foam latex creatures, but you can do that sort of thing synthetically. For this, I think it's just about, we're thinking about the aesthetic for the end user. When you look at just the naked gun, if you like, on its own, it is reasonably simplistic and doesn't immediately speak of Star Wars. But by very carefully mounting these components in a fully reversible manner onto the weapon, it really changes it and then immediately becomes recognized, certainly for a Star Wars fan, to something that's from the Star Wars universe.
So in acquiring and brokering a piece for sale, when you restore it, your goal is to bring it to more of an expected condition, but allow it to go back to the exact state you acquired it in.
Yes, as best you can. Again, when you're working with certain materials like foam latex, you can't do that. I think we did a video many years ago on a Princess Leia dress that's in my collection, and a lot of that was very similar. That was cloth, but all of the repair work was actually done within a layer within the garment. So the stitching was filling the holes, but it was actually stitching onto that. So there's a lot of different considerations as you're sort of working through it. But this is just super exciting, not just for its use on Empire Strikes Back. Of course, Boba Fett, he was so briefly seen, but so quickly embraced by the fandom and loved by the fandom.
Such a deeply evocative character where the fandom pulls him out of Star Wars and makes him into Boba Fett.
Absolutely, and so this is the so specific to the sort of the silhouette of the character. He's always
totally.
Got the master, right?
He's
got
lazy
the pose. And then this weapon, we now know, based on the serial number from this gun, was the master that was then created for the Jedi blaster as well.
No way.
So it is the same cast. It is cast from this same weapon. The serial number, you can see that. We've managed to locate production photos where you can see the serial number in the resin cast.
Oh, that's
Obviously, they changed the
spectacular.
aesthetic of it, and the majority of that filming would have probably been done in the US for those sequences. And therefore, maybe sending a cast to America was easier. Maybe this wasn't a readily available, base weapon in the US. I don't know. I mean,
there's also huge restrictions on the movement of firearms in England, right?
There is,
much more than there are in the United States. Well,
it would have been more relaxed during this period, but still, it would have been a consideration for sure. And I think it's very important for us to mention, just that this has now been fully deactivated.
Demilled. It has no firing pin. It cannot make anything
it's
leave
completely
its barrel.
decommissioned. Yes, absolutely.
Especially since stuffed in its barrel is Darth Vader's lightsaber. The front of this is an MPP flash unit. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there it is.
That's keeping it from firing. Lightsaber comes out.
That could be an interesting one.
I want to hear more about the actual restoration. Can we walk through it with the restorer?
Yeah, sure. Let's bring Luke on board,
Absolutely.
shall we? Luke, do you want to come in and just have a look at this? I'll move over this side. There we
right.
go. Let's change around.
All right, Luke, how are you?
I'm very good, yes. Nice to meet you.
Dude, okay, so what is it like when Boba Fett's OG rifle shows up on your workbench? That's got to be heady.
Well, I mean, the message was the weirdest thing that came in first, because you just sort of read the message and you go, no, it can't be Boba Fett, surely. Show me the photos, show me the receipts. And then you look at the photos, you go, okay, maybe this is in fact. And so we kind of just looked at it and thought, what can we do? Because, Propstore approached us to work with us to do all this restoration. We had quite a short lead time. We worked pretty solid for 10 days on this. Nothing like a bit of pressure to get us going.
10 days?
Yeah, 10 days, yeah.
10 days.
And it was probably a week in reality, because we came down, we couldn't take the piece up with us to our workshop in the north, because we're at the other end of the country, but we came down to take all of the accessories, pieces and things like that, measure all the things we needed to measure to do the work we needed, went back to workshop, did a pile of very, very late nights, and then came back on the train the week later and fitted them.
And what a great job you've done. I mean,
thank you very much.
It's
yeah,
outstanding.
It's great.
Can you walk me through what the
Sure.
major and minor parts of the restoration
Yes, I mean,
entail?
I'll spin it round, because this is probably the side that the hyper nerds of Fett are probably going to know a little more. Because actually, this is the side
brass
that
handle is so
it
beautiful.
is. This is the side that was against Fett. So
Right,
actually,
okay.
reference for this side is very minimal. So there is a little bit of artistic license in some of the things we've had to do on some of those pieces.
Copy that.
Because you just can't see them.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, really, like the key major parts are. We've got like a Unimax fail-safe switch. That is a real housing. So it was a safety piece of equipment from the 80s. So one of the other hats I wear is I'm a mechanical engineer in the electrical industry.
So you knew this part.
I knew this part anyway. And so like electrical bits and connectors are kind of my niche in the community of finding. But all of these accessories and parts to us were provided by Chris Travas, who does parts of Star Wars. He has like an Instagram following and all the rest of it.
People are amazing.
They are amazing. And for me, the community is the best at finding things that we all think are lost and gone.
And it goes to every franchise. Ghostbusters has benefited from the Ghostbusters fandom. It's really delightful when the fandoms actually become part of the machine that just makes more awesome stuff.
And everyone's better together when they work together.
Yes.
And so this is a collaborative effort. We can't take all the credit for it. It's a part of a journey. But like for years, these split plugs, these AM split plugs, there's been so many debates about which are the right ones, which are the wrong ones. For years, it was thought to be the Hirschmans. Then High Def Photos came out and was like, it can't be the Hirschmans. It's a knockoff brand from England that no one's found. So the closest we have are these resin casts, because I think a lot of people are like, why didn't you get Hirschman AM split plugs? Well, actually, they're not accurate. So we've got, yes, they're resin casts, but they're resin casts of the cheap knockoff of the one that you can't get anymore. Because I think
I love the conversations that are going to be taking place online right
now. I know. We've been following silently because we don't want to. We just don't want to.
Right, you can't contribute.
We can't contribute to that. But it's just interesting to see. So anyway, like painting up these, we stripped everything back to bare paint, because there was some paint done before, but we were brought in to accurize and make it right. So we stripped everything back to base, and these parts here, the Unimaxes, are actually molded with a glass fiber, 30% glass fiber nylon. So we had a lot of discussions about how much of that weathering was intentional from the prop team and how much was practical from pre-production. Right. Because nothing sticks to glass nylon. Nothing. So all of this, like when we were doing the weathering, so Paul, who works in my team as the painter, did a lot of work, and we were just like practicing. We're going, and the paint just falls off. Yeah. Like there's very little work to do. So when we're looking at all the photos throughout the production, we can see quite a lot of this wearing damage will really have been from just use.
Just moving
So
around.
it would be interesting to see what this gun was like when the prop master handed it off on day one on set for pre-production.
Nice and perfectly black.
Yes, how much of it was clean, because you can see we've got one shot straight down on top of the AM split plug, and really all of the paint is gone. And if you look, his armor catches on it, which is why, and this is the controversial one, I will flip it round, because I know this will be discussed in the community.
All right.
And so there's a missing split plug here.
Yeah.
So we referenced everything on the carbon chamber freezing scene, which is the last scene we see Boba in the film. So our internal logic was it would be what the gun would be before it went out into the world. And there is no AM split plug. And there is
in that scene?
Yes, in that scene. There is even a shot of Boba's armor lifted up, hiked on top of that split plug. So we assume at some point in that shot it's been knocked off, because earlier in the film on the bridge of the ship where Darth Vader is, you see it there. In one tiny little behind the scenes shot, you see it there.
So just within the lineage of Star Wars, you're going to consider, since it's missing in the last scene, it's not part of
That's what we've gone for, rightly or wrongly. However, we have made another one, and it will be given to the purchaser, so that if they so choose to, they can attach it, and we've weathered it appropriately for the right fitting.
Makes me so happy.
We discussed it at length. We were just like, we have to do it, because we know that particular piece to the average person is not going to matter, but to the type of person who particularly cares about this piece is exactly the level they're going to care about.
And it's an exceptionally minor amount of effort to deliver such great satisfaction to that person's
I think so,
freedom to own the weapon they
completely.
want.
And so we had the original Revel cam rods. We got some their original pieces actually from the
Revel
V8
scale model engine.
It's a V8.
Yeah,
a V8 model kit. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I built that as a kid.
And then that's mounted on a custom SLA printed mystery disc, because
mystery disc,
still unknown. No one knows what it is to this day. I'm fairly confident it's some form of a clock shaft or something, a keyed shaft of some descript that will turn up in some random piece of equipment in 20 years' time.
We learn everything eventually.
You do, yeah. I think everything you do. But I think the next interesting bit we want to look at is these pipe clamps. Now, this is quite new to the community, because for a lot of years people have used standard Imperial pipe clamps. But Chris Travas had rightly pointed out he thinks that these clamps are a specific brand from Durapipe. which existed in the 60s and 70s, and they made polypropylene fittings
For mounting pipes.
For mounting pipes in-
conduit on walls.
Exactly that. However, the interesting part is this little knurled knob. You don't see many pipe mounts. There is a threaded piece under that plastic.
A little grub screw?
A little grub, well, not a grub screw, it's just molded that way. So they mold it and then they split it in half.
Oh, so that's
It's an
the
injection
joint.
mold, that's the joint.
Wow.
It's crazy. And so when we had that identified, we're like, okay, let's look to the front, because the front for a lot of years, people have been cutting pipe clamps and putting Allen grub screws in and putting wire on. But actually, it's just one of these spread out. So if you see here, we've even modelled in the right deformation. So I modelled this all in SolidWorks as a base flat piece, and then deformed it out to make the right. So there's like a little.
So this is one size down from this.
This is two sizes
Two
down,
sizes
and we have an original of the one in the middle, which is how we modelled it. So I do injection mold design in my day job, and so.
So you were able to give this correct draft angles.
Correct.
And stuff.
Which leads on to another interesting part, which is this barrel typically should have according to the drawing, should have a taper of 1 degree. And a lot of the discussion for the years, and this is hyper nerdy, people have discussed how can we get the pipe fittings to fit when the barrel has a taper. Injection molding, there's a taper for draft. And the draft
You just have
angle
to point it in
is
the right
about 1
direction.
degree.
It's about 1 degree.
And so now we know the draft, we know the orientation based on the geometry of the part. But we've got little ejection pin marks.
Look at that.
We've got the split line.
What part of this did you say was nerdy?
Yeah, quite a lot of it. And so we moulded these in quite a ductile urethane resin so that it would emulate the polypropylene that the original was made from. And we dyed it in the mould so that it's the right colour grey underneath before we then paint 99% of it black.
Incredible.
Because
Incredible.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
These are real ATX connectors.
Lovely,
So they're
lovely.
Real
and
source
then
parts.
the same scope that's on every Star Wars weapon.
It
ever.
is, yeah, it is. We've done a little bit more weathering than what we see in a lot of replicas, and I think a lot of people when they're looking at photos are going to assume that this is painted, or it's resin.
Yeah.
It's not, it's just painted. But if
I
you look at the reasoning
that. I
why
actually
people...
shined my flashlight
Yes,
on it and realized,
yeah.
this actually it works.
It is. And I think when you look at a lot, people have this thing in their head where they it's like the VHS copy. They look at a replica and replicate the replica and don't go back to the original source material.
Yep.
If you look at it though, it makes sense why they would have done that, because you wouldn't want glare in the camera.
You wouldn't want the reflection.
So they've matted it out intentionally. Similarly with the inside of the barrel on the MPP,
Yes.
that's been matted out as well. And so we've sort of done all that just so that it feels more authentic to what was on screen. And you can look at it, all the references of any front shots of that scope are flat black. You know.
I love that we talk so openly about delivering the expected experience of the piece to the buyer, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk to you about love.
Sure.
Wow, getting deep today.
It doesn't matter whether or not I care about a piece when I start working on it, if I like have a particular connection to it.
Yeah.
Once I have put every detail of something into my head and into my body, I fall in love with it.
Yeah.
Like I made an orange spacesuit a few years ago. I never really liked the NASA orange spacesuits, but in
Yep.
building one, it's my favorite spacesuit.
Yep.
So I just want to ask you about your emotional experience of this piece. It's all in you now.
It is, yeah,
You
it is.
have a unique, having spent a week inside of this,
Yes.
you have like, you're one of a few dozen people who's had that kind of experience.
It blows my mind at different points when I think about it. I was really fortunate because I joined the 501st Legion when I first got into Star Wars.
Yeah.
I was part of the trooping, and Boba Fett was my first costume. And I was inducted into the Legion by Jeremy Bullock.
Amazing.
Rest
Oh
him,
my
and was
God, the
a
original
lovely,
Boba
lovely
Fett.
gentleman. And so for me, the connection is a little bit twofold in the fact that I had a wonderful experience to spend with Jeremy, who was the most gracious, lovely man in all of Star Wars. And, you know, he always talked to us, was always kind. And just to think that this was a piece he touched in something that at the time he had no concept of how impactful that would be, to then let us be able to come in and do some work. I know it's been an honour for Paul to work on it. He worked really hard on all the paint. So all the paint I have to owe to him in credit, who works with us. He's done a really, really great job, and we agonised. It was great to have someone with me who was equally nerdy about all the
You
details.
need that. You
do.
need a check and balance.
You need a soundboard.
I want to tell you that as I looked over this before you guys arrived and before we started filming this, I absolutely had no idea what could be original and what was replaced. Often I can't.
great. Yeah.
This work is just beautiful. You
Yeah.
guys did incredible work. It's
Trying to think
amazing.
if there's anything else new. I think the only other new thing that we've done is we machined these brackets in the week. So
These little guys?
Yeah, I've got like a Carvera CNC machine. So we machined them, did the patterning and did that out in 1 week. Interestingly, it appears on other parts of original trilogy guns, that piece.
Oh.
So there was some better references of some of them, so we had to use those references to make this piece, which was great.
It's a scavenger hunt.
It is a scavenger hunt. You know, like the scope being provided by Chris, all of those pieces, and again, it just comes together to make it a really, really beautiful thing. We did some engineering for the collet, because I think the OG way of doing it is like a piece of wood with some tape
you
on
did
it
it. What is it,
wrapped
like an M10 in there?
It's an M10 expanding collet.
Can I just point out that I nailed a British metric spec with an American eye down a barrel? I feel like I just
no freedom units. Well done. That's great.
All right.
Yes.
The big M10 countersunk. Yeah.
Yep. So when I came down for the first time, I modelled the barrel. I basically took the profile and reversed that into the CAD software in SolidWorks so that I could do perspective matching to get the fit right. And the collet has to be a little bit weird because there are some dents in the barrel. There's a dent at about there's a bent at about 7 o'clock and about 1 o'clock. So the collet has to have those accounted for. There's also a weld stud in the barrel. There's one here at about 1 o'clock as well, hidden by the ATX connector.
So it is.
But yeah, like obviously we designed it before we came here to come down and test fit it, and it didn't fit at all because the bore of the barrel is meant to be 38 millimeters. It's like 39.5. And it's got weld spatter all over it. So I think it's had 2 deactivations.
Oh, okay. Right, because they welded stuff into the barrel.
Yeah, well, I think there's like a slug that was done in the original deactivation, and then
that would have been in the early 2000s. So that's when it first came out about T. It would have almost certainly still been live fire at that time.
Yeah,
so and that would have been the first time.
We negotiated with Chris, the armourer, on the deactivation so that it was, because originally there was discussions about where do we put the pin and all the rest of it, and he's the expert on that, but I was like, I know what some person buying this might care about. They may not want to have all the things on. They may want to strip everything off. And so we had conversations about how that could do, and we reached a great agreement, which meant that nothing externally got touched. Amazing. And that's what we wanted. And so obviously, we fitted the grip from the other Webley and the other sling ring that were missing. And then, that's as a piece.
And that was a debate actually with the grip as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because the grips, the blaster, the gun, I suppose, if you like, the flare gun, still had the original Bapti grips on it, but those grips weren't this style of grip, were they?
It was the Bakelite one.
Yeah, that's right. So we were really discussing, and what's the reason for the brass grips versus the Bakelite? Is that something that they were just interchangeable during that period?
I think from what we saw when we looked into all the Webley things, because obviously there was like somewhere between 50 and 75,000 of these things made in 1979-20, because we looked at the records just for nerdy sake, as you do, and just to think there was so many of these things kicking around at that point, I genuinely believe that it would have been like everything, a cost reduction. The initial models would have been released with the high-end brass. Right. And then when they're like, we're producing en masse because
Bakelite was a new material too.
Bakelite was a new material, yeah. And brass would have been expensive. The need for copper would have been going up and up as the rise of electricals would have came through. So the want to do brass would have just reduced. Yeah. And so the guys still have the Bakelite piece if it was used on anything else. We did check on the return to check whether it was potentially the one that was used on that one before the casting, but it isn't. It is definitely the brass one. Yeah, we checked that.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so we did check that over. But in terms of like sympathetic restoration, everything for the most part is quite clamp on. So the collet is an expanding collet that can be removed. These are just clipped on the same way the original.
To its original state immediately.
These pieces are magneted on with some museum gel as well, just to stop the rotation a little bit. And these last parts here are held on with an acrylic double-sided adhesive with a mesh fabric in it. And we just for extra bits, we got some chalk powder just to dust in so that you didn't get the shine on the top of the tape. Just so that on the top-down look, you got just black. Just to stealth it a little bit. So yeah, we were super proud of all the bits we've done on it. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Amazing, man. It's beautiful, beautiful work. The auction's coming up.
Yes, December 5th to December 7th. So bidding's live right now. So people are already looking at this thing and drooling over it. Yep. And the live auction takes place in London on December the 5th for this. One of one Boba Fett. Yeah. Guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks. You, man.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thanks, Luke.
When I was a young model maker, I was always freelance. And when you're freelance, one of the best ways to get work is to draw attention to yourself, both for what you can do and also how you do it. And one of the ways I drew attention to myself was with my toolboxes. They were moderately absurd. Aluminum doctor's bags sitting on scissor lifts so I could rise them up to the level of my workbench and give me access to every tool I needed, hundreds and hundreds of them, This is a poster I drew a bunch of years ago of these toolboxes, and it includes a list of every last thing that was in here, numbering thousands and thousands of dollars. For the first time ever, we're making these available to you, signed. And you can get yours over at adamsavage.com. See you guys there.